In part 2, we talk about the root of self-sabotage, the power of walking away, and how this can be a huge catalyst for change. We talk about needing a clear destination when setting a goal, and how having a strong why can be your core motivator. Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest Define Meaning. Now, let's dive in. How do you work with clients who are in that position, and how can you help them?
Good question, because I will say, and straight into my head, some people aren't ready for help. So when somebody comes to me, and this might be for a diet, might be training, might be mental health advice, help, counselling, whatever. When somebody else calls on their behalf, good question, because I will say, and straight into my head, some people aren't ready for help. So when somebody comes to me, and this might be for a diet, might be training, might be mental health advice, help, counselling, whatever. When somebody else calls on their behalf, I'm always very dubious about, is this because somebody's trying to be the helper fixer, or is this because the person that is involved, the client, wants it? So I always say, let's say it's your partner, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, mum, dad, whatever. Have you spoke to them? Is this something they want? Are they ready for the changes that is going to put them into a better place? Or do you want to help them? Which is admirable. It's applaudable, but maybe they're not in the place to accept and they're not ready. And you're putting unnecessary pressure on them. And ultimately, you might be paying money for something somebody isn't going to follow up. You're absolutely right. And as men, I think we want to be that provider, that fixer. But each person that comes to me is, what do you want from me? How can I help you? And it's amazing how many people will call me, book in, and they go, I'm not sure. And then it's very organic and conversational. A consultation with me will take hours. I go in with no preconceived ideas. Yes, I might have previous health history, blood test results. They fill in a 4-page questionnaire, keep a training and food diary and all of that. But what happens when we go into conversation, very often, the destination of what they thought they wanted and the reality are hugely different. They're different postcodes, not even the same vicinity. So opening up and giving somebody room to talk, when somebody is ready, I want them to ask for it, not for somebody else to ask for it. They say, whether it's addiction, whatever it is, you've really got to open your heart and mind up to the fact that there is a problem before you will seek help. Because you might go, I do this too much, I do that too much, I don't do enough of this. But you're in denial. The minute you go, actually, this is starting to be a problem, or it could be a problem, I need to go and seek advice, help, mentoring, whatever it might be. But I think it's very important the person is involved in that decision. And rather than being intervention by those people around, that's one point I would make. If somebody's not ready, they're not ready for change.
So if they are ready, obviously I feel as though you'll probably go in there with questions to get a deeper understanding of what's going on inside. What do you find is the biggest cause of this, and how do you navigate this?
I think one big one, because it's different for everyone, is people putting too much pressure on themselves, too many expectations. Be it they want to have the body, the health, the mindset they had when they were younger. Be it they have a family and feel that they have to be seen to be super dad, super mom, whatever for the kids. Be it they feel threatened in the current environment in the workplace, that they'll lose their job, and look at the economy. There's just pressure. And then that is amplified and very often exaggerated outside of all reality in your head, that internal auditory dialogue, as we call it, that inner voice. Then you've got to consider why people do certain things, self-sabotage. Maybe there's history there. So I could give you
very dramatic, I won't necessarily, but very dramatic examples of that, where I've had people literally eating themselves into the grave. We're talking getting to 26, 27 stone in this one case, because that person had very successfully worked with me for years. Prior to that, got their weight down from a big weight, very healthy weight, were very physically active, mobile, everything they said they wanted to achieve, they achieved them more. But one of the driving factors for them was a relationship. And they got in a relationship and it didn't work. So the self-sabotage was literally get as big as they can so nobody could possibly look me, which isn't the case, isn't necessarily the case at all. But they were getting to a point where it was very dangerous. And it literally did end up walking away, because I'm like, look, I've tried every trick that worked the first time round over years. I knew this person really well. They'd become a personal friend. And I can't stand by and watch you do this to yourself. And it turns out me walking away was a great catalyst for them to change, because that shook their world. And they then found somebody else. And rather than me being possessive and jealous about that, I was like, look, whatever works for you works for me, because I consider you as a friend, not just a client. And almost got too complacent. And I'm very black and white. I'm very upfront. Anybody who's worked with me, I'm very blunt. And that used to really work with this person, and it stopped working. Again, sometimes, and it's a hard thing to do, James, is walking away from people, be it a relationship. So I've been into sadly failed marriages, but I've got two amazing sons. I do everything to keep the peace, because only little I see their mums regular. I've seen both of them this morning, and I don't want to pretend that they're best friends, but they're not enemies. I won't let that eat me, and I certainly will never let the children see that. They don't hear a bad word, and they never will. And that might weigh heavy, for instance, on my mental health. So it might be that I have to do things for me, or I will be willing to do things for me, because what's important is they have a healthy daddy, physically and mentally. Sometimes it's finding what's important to somebody, and maybe it's not themselves. Maybe it is their job, their parents, because there's a lot of things. A simple one would be the skydiving, but whatever it might be, is dedicated to them and for me to be there for as long and as healthy as I can be for them. So that's the thing we tap into when we have the conversation. What is your motivation, driving force? And people are kind of like, I'm not really sure. So I liken it to people travel to see me from wherever. And I said, I've given you my postcode and then the number of the door and describe the house and blah, blah, blah. So you have an exact pinpoint with laser accuracy of where you need to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, wherever, to see me. If I said, I'm in South Birmingham, what's the chances of you finding me? 0. And that's people's goal or destination. And now it doesn't have to be as exact as a pinpoint in a map. But if I can help them zero in on what they feel and believe would make them happy, for instance, it might be when they get there, they want more. Maybe they want less. Maybe it's the left of that, the right of that. And that's why reevaluation and adjustment, because you get people, therapists, trainers, nutritionists, are very set. They have a set point, go, this is what we want. We need your bloods to be perfect. We need you to have a 6-pack. We need you to run this fast. We need you to no. You're enforcing your ideals on somebody. Listen to that person. I've got a big Ganesh tattoo on my back for some of the symbolism. One of them, he has 2 big ears and a small mouth. Listen more than you speak. Teach this to my students when they're doing consultations. If your client is unloading and maybe unraveling, give them the space to do that. Treat them with respect. And then readdress it, because you might have to shift focus. Maybe that's the reason they're not eating well. Maybe that's the reason they're not exercising. So to concentrate on, here's your diet, here's your training plan, totally the wrong approach. And I'm not expecting everyone to be trained in NLP and counseling and mentoring, as I am, but then find somebody with, surround yourself with people of excellence and make a team. I've done it a bit. I'm taking a lot of things on, wearing a lot of hats. There are better sports. I'm qualified in body massage, sports massage. I don't do it. I send them to other people who are better that I know personally. And again, stop trying to be excellent at everything, but certainly don't be a jack of all trades. You had that with a mechanic that bought a dodgy second in your car. And when you were literally describing it, I was like, oh, so he's gone for convenient and cheap and cheerful. Because I hear that all the time when people come to me, I work with this trainer, did that, and they go, what is this they've given you? Why did you go there? Oh, because of a $4.99 a session, or they live next door to me. Oh, come on. God forbid if you have to have serious surgery, are you going to go to the trainer? You're going to go to the person that's done this procedure 1,000 times and never. That's who I'm sourcing. Those have been my tutors in the areas that I've studied. And that's why I treat people like David Heiner, because he studied people and their motivation and their actions to gain the results for years. And people of great excellence in business, in sport and everything. Going to the PTs, people being a PT overnight. I came out of the Air Force. I went to America, traveled around for 3 months. As I said, I was very proud of my time in as a armourer, aircraft weapons technician, but not much call for ejection seats, bombs, missiles, and doesn't bound buttons. In Civvy Street, not many cars in an ejection seat, and they're quite expensive. So I travelled around America, and I was going off to British Aerospace to work for Saudi Air Force as an instructor, really well paid, tax-free, but they had this little thing going on called the Gulf War, and I thought, not the best time. I was very tall and skinny. I'm 6'2". And I went to America and travelled around and ended up hanging out with some surfers who were all into training, and I was staying in a condo at the beach, and I just saw all these body beautiful men and women, Gold's Gym and all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? Fancy a bit of that. Pure vanity. Literally, I was only in my early 20s, pure vanity. But I'm the kind of person who wants to know how, what, I, when, where. I need the nitty-gritty. So I went and studied the West London Institute of Higher Education, doing my gym instructor PT. I went to the Institute of Proctor Nutrition to study nutrition. I was working for Weider, the original bodybuilding stores, got headhunted, became the area manager for the biggest fitness store in the UK at the time, Workout World, and I covered Stratford and Newcastle and Belfast. But long story short, I was studying sports therapy, started my master's degree, and it was only after 6 years, and I've been training a lot of athletes, especially bodybuilders, but 6 years of, in the trenches, as they call it, mastering my art and trade before I ever charged anybody for PT. And then I walked away from that job and became a PT and nutritionist. Nowadays, people want it in 6 minutes. How can you be brilliant enough to take on things which, if you're open-minded and you don't write the same plan and program and protocol for everyone, how are you going to have the experience and the depth of knowledge to take all comers or close to that? Yeah, conquer it. Learn before you earn. But we're living in a world of fake it till you make it. And if you want to talk about mental health, that bugs me on a daily basis, because I feel people's standards in themselves and more so for others when they're charging ridiculous money. I know people who haven't got a clue what they're doing, charging 3, 4, 5 times what I am. I could literally give examples of celebrity PT clinics in London charging hundreds of pounds an hour, hundreds. With that exact same person has been my client, and in fact, in one instance was a student of mine and dropped out. This is too challenging. What are you saying? You're saying that you charge 5 times, 6 times actually what I charge, and you're not willing to study because it's a bit challenging? This is the modern world. And yet the people paying that person have no idea literally how bad they are. So I don't verbalize it. I'm not going to drop somebody in here. I see this, and there are a lot of people being fooled. A lot of people.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I just want to mention that you mentioned earlier. One was the catalyst. So you mentioned the catalyst to your friend to be able to go through what he was going through was you walking away. And I think that is so important.
It was a she, by the way. I don't want to give too many clues, but it was
a she. Okay. The catalyst was such an important thing, because like part of when I went through this breakup about 10 years ago, the catalyst for me was basically not having to go through that whole experience again.
And that was for this lady. It hurt her so much. She was literally eating herself to death to prevent emotional heartache, because what if she got in another relationship and got hurt again? And I know relationships, when they break down, hurt. Like I said, I'm twice divorced. But sometimes it's actually a blessing and you're better off in the place that you end up, but it's hard to see that at the time.
Yeah.
It is hard to see that at the time.
But it's so important that everything that we go through, if we slow down enough, if we go within, quite often the catalyst is just there in front of us.
Yeah. And
We just got to be able.
yeah.
We just got to see it. You just got to see it.
We're so wrapped up. Sometimes we're so wrapped up in the misery, is the easiest way to say it. And again, it's a little example. I'm very into analogies and practical demonstrations. So if I was given a tour, I might darken the room and put a torch on and go, if I shine my torch on, that's all I'm seeing, because that's all I'm the torch on. Let's put the big light on, as Peter Kay would call it. Now look all these potential possibilities we've got. Look at the room filled with all these different people, and maybe one of these people could be my savior, could be my partner, could be the one that actually just says, sort it out. You've been wallowing in this long enough. Or it might be somebody else who goes, actually, you need to heal. You need to do this talking therapy. You need to go on this adventure. You need to do whatever. We need other people, I believe. I really do believe we need other people sometimes to shine the light away from the misery onto the opportunities.
Or even to see the hour behind.
Yeah, and that's important.
We might not see what's going on, but somebody from the outside perspective can see blatantly what's going on. And I think knowing your blind spot is so key. But you mentioned, because I think mental health is it's a minefield, mental health, mental illness, because I feel as though we almost put everything, because we're so drawn and so into the mind, that we put everything into mental health. But maybe sometimes what we're going through is actually emotional health.
Yes.
And that's why I do use those terms slightly differently. And again, it's your perception and understanding and in what context, which is very important. But yeah, as I said, we all have up and down days, but some people will see a bad experience that puts them into a lower mood state. And automatically, I'm depressed. I've got depression. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to belittle that. I'm not going to question that. But is this a temporary state? Is this transient? Or are we stuck? Is it affecting your everyday life? Is it having a knock-on effect negatively to other people? And sometimes we need to address it. It is the time and the place. And other times it's, well, ride with it and let's see, because tomorrow is another day.
And you mentioned about pinpointing, because when we are aiming this big, as I had to scream, it's very hard to pinpoint something that small.
Yes.
And so I feel sometimes it's self-reflection, going into kind of allowing ourselves to go into this thing, because I feel like people, especially if you use the word fear, people know they're scared, but if they go in, if they want to allow themselves to almost go into that fear, they almost have to walk through it. And quite often fear, anger, other emotions, sadness, grief, people will run a mile before they even think about, okay, I'm going to have to be brave. I'm going to have to step into this to even be able to pinpoint what exactly is it that's really triggering me or is really causing me to feel anxious.
Yeah. And they avoid things that they will learn from or will need in their life because they built it up into something that's way more horrendous than the reality of the situation. So again, that's external factors and people might be able to help there. But you're right. Sometimes it is that face the fear and do it anyway. Now, there are times where you just don't do that. Go back to the skydiving. I wanted to prove to myself and I loved being it. But then there was a point where it's okay, the fear isn't about me anymore. The fear is if I plow in, my baby at the time hadn't even been born, he isn't going to have a daddy. And so sometimes fears are rational, sometimes they're irrational. Sometimes we have to go through that to feel the wonderment, the enjoyment, the amazing, satisfying feedback that we get from something. But then you've got your adrenaline junkies. A lot of this, by the way, comes down to genetics, and I do a lot of genetic testing. And you've got people that are driven by dopamine, which is that reward mechanism, and you've got DRD receptors in the brain, and you've got COMT, this methyltransferase enzyme that breaks down adrenaline, so people get stuck in that, or they can't optimize adrenaline so they feel flat and burnt out. And there is no, for instance, cortisol we call stress hormone, but straight away I always say to people, just the term calling it stress hormone, which is somewhat correct made by the adrenals, but it's a negative connotation, like, all cortisol is bad. Bodybuilders for years, all breaks down muscle. He goes, this, we need it to mobilize energy. It gives us that get up and go in the morning. If I measure somebody's cortisol awakening response, which basically mirrors adrenaline, when you wake up in the morning, essentially your stress levels, if we want to simplify it as that term, are supposed to go up to give you that get up and go and get out of bed. The mental health wave that talked 2 weeks ago in Cardiff, I showed somebody that was in a hugely elevated, heightened state of long-term chronic stress and adrenal overdrive. But then the next slide was somebody, and she'd been a lead cyclist in the British Olympic team. She was completely flatlined because they'd pushed her till she burnt out. And I told the story basically. They drove her into the ground. She had to come out cycling. I'm not exaggerating when I say now it's probably 13, 14 years later, maybe even more. She's still never recovered. And that was official coaches and experts in the British cycling team. And I see this a lot with athletes because they enforce a succeed or drop out. We haven't got room to nurture people. We'll push you, and only the fittest will survive. It's kind of military outlook and trade, although that's changed because, in my opinion, a lot of things are getting a bit too soft. I've literally seen a thing this morning, and then it's a quote, I haven't even looked into it, but it's stop shouting at recruits. I don't know what they mean by this, but be more like David Beckham, be the nice guy. But you're sending people to horrendous places around the world in horrendous situations where they are literally exposing themselves and their lives. And you want to treat them softly with kid gloves. Sometimes you need pressure. You need torment. You need to be exposed. The CS chamber, there's some people that are quite, actually it's always funny. They never massively bothered me, but you go in, you got your respirator, NBC suits off, not there, say backwards, oh my God, you're coughing your gut. And nobody really enjoys it, apart from the DI, the instructors. They think it's hilarious. But if you never go through that, God forbid what would happen if you were, I was supposed to go to Gulf War, what if you were coming under a test from nuclear, biological, or chemical warfare, and you didn't know your drills off by heart? So sometimes there is a necessity. And if I make it more lightweight, the lady today is going to come and see me. I'm going to give her a gentle at-home stretching plan and just an exercise band workout plan. And I will supervise it. I will assess her. We'll go through it. We'll write notes. Make sure she's comfortable with everything. But she then has to do that. She's going to have to do her homework to reach the goal that she's trying to go to. So is she going to enjoy every one of those workouts? Possibly not. I'd like it to. But does she have to do it anyway? Otherwise, it's not going to work. Absolutely. When students are studying for their exams, if you're going through athletic training or military training, wherever, there are times where you're literally going to go, that little voice in your head is going to go, what am I doing this for? What have I got to prove? And then you got to reset and go, no, I really want to achieve this. This is important to me. This is important that I do it for my family, my kids, my partner, my students, whatever it might be. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's less uncomfortable, but you accept it. You know why you're doing it. You reason, I've got to go through this or I'm not going to achieve. And again, think, and I've got 2 young kids, but we are raising a society, immediate gratification. If it's uncomfortable, walk away. And I think
Tony Robbins talks about a cycle where I can't remember the 4 things, but just brought it to mind there, where we go through a tough time, the population becomes hardened. Then we go through that tough time, because we're hardened, things become easier. As they become easier, we become softer. And then obviously as we become softer, things come harder. So then we become hardened. So I feel as though, I think you're saying about every 10, 15 years, we go through another phase. Yes, and I feel as though we're going into this softened phase, which will make us hardened in perhaps 20 years' time and go around.
Yeah. And there are cycles. I remember seeing, it was actually Sylvester Stallone talking about something, and I've seen Tony Robbins right a couple of times, but Sylvester Stallone saying tough times make tough people, but he doesn't mean tough as in cold. It means resilient sometimes. And if you're not challenged, you don't learn, you don't grow. But by the same token, if you're over-challenged, you break, or some people break. It's a happy medium. But if you're talking about cycles 10, 15 years, where does that leave my kids if they're 8 and 13? Because I want to know that by the time they hit maturity and adulthood, that they are resilient. I mean, there's only so much I can do because there's a whole big world out there for them away from me. And I don't want them to be, I grew up very strict, very tough. I don't want my kids get told 1,000 times a day. I love them. We're very tactile, kissy, cuddly. I'm not even going to go into that. It's not a sub story. I just never got it. So there are times where people absolutely just need pure love and affection and caring and ear. But there are other times where it's, come on, boys, you need to tidy your stuff up. It's dinner time, sit down at the table, this, that, and the other. It's a happy medium. There's a time and a place. And if we rely on the powers that be it government, be the instructors, be the school teachers, whatever, and a lot of them have their hands tied and they're getting directives to be soft, be this, let people off. Sometimes you have to do it for ourselves. Sometimes we look at ourselves in the mirror and go, am I giving myself too easy in a time with this? Am I making too many excuses to not get stuff done? I've got a deadline and I've been studying genetic testing for over 11 years, about 11 and a half years. Because I remember I was still with, as I call it, ex-wife number one. My school was just a baby. And I remember calling her and I was studying with a friend of mine, brilliant tutor, world-renowned Amara Cadogan, came over from Copenhagen, Denmark. Never had him over a few times teaching my students and doctors. But I was studying with him. And I remember calling her, it was a few days, so I was away from home. And I was buzzing. She was like, I've never heard you this excited for ages. And I was like, this is what I want. I want challenging. I'm confused as hell. That means I'm learning. And I say to my students, I've got this picture of, it's actually Bruce Lee just pulling his face and it's confused. Good. Because if you're not confused, you already know all of this. So why are you even here? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. But now let's take a step back and explain everything so you understand. If we make everything too comfortable, or if you want everything too comfortable, we will pay the price for them.
There's a guy I interviewed probably a couple of weeks ago, Uri Latta. He talked about fatherhood and how before he can be his best for his daughter, he has to be his best for himself. So he has to do the growth within himself so that he can then lead by example, so that then she can see that what he does. But I think also there's the idea that, yes, I feel as though as adults, as teachers, we need to show people love so that they feel loved. But at the same time, we also need to challenge them enough so that they feel challenged, so that they can understand when they grow up or when they become a bit more astute, that they know how to love themselves.
Yes.
Because we've shown them. But they also know how to work through challenges, how to work through mental health issues that they may have, how to work through physical health, how to work through if they get lost or don't know their purpose, how they can start to step into their purpose. And I feel that is where the gold is.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. And it's very lightweight, but it literally is fresh. It was yesterday. So I drove up to the Lake District, Ambleside, which holds great memories from when I was 20 and swimming in the lake with a girlfriend at the time. I was in the Air Force and then me and my boy, the older boy, Oscar, had been camping. So I wanted to take the younger one there and we went on the boat and did some lovely stuff. But like your car, like most people's cars, I've got some kind of power drain on the battery and it was all charged up and it was fine. Drove up there, no problem. And this was on Tuesday and the lakes being the lakes, weather looked great. You're driving in there just before 12 and the heavens opened. I was like, oh. And like I said, we went out on the boat anyway. But being a conscientious, safe driver with the kids in the car, as we got up toward the lakes, I put the side lights on just for visibility to other drivers because the road going to the lakes is always notoriously busy. And then just put the side lights on. Pulled up outside the place we were staying, lovely place, parked to the car park. And I've got the two kids, I'm keeping an eye on them, and I always take too much stuff because I've got their toys and games, and I've got the suitcase, and I've got wetsuits in case we go for a swim in the lake. They weren't feeling that. I like my cold water dips. They weren't feeling that. But I've got the car massively overloaded, always over-prepared. So I'm unloading the car, they sat there, we go in, we check in, they're happy with the room, and I was like, let's go out. Don't care if it's raining. That's why we've got raincoats. I love grew up with Billy Connolly. There's no such thing as bad weather. You just got the wrong clothing. And they're happy. Kids love the rain. So we go down, we do the boat trip and come back, and we had some dinner and stuff. And then we went down to the car for something. And the central locking was being a bit moody. And I was like, oh no. And I clocked that had left the side lights on. So I was like, there's not a lot I can do about it tonight. But I told the boys. And Oscar, the older one, was like, is everything going to be okay, Daddy? I was like, look, Daddy will sort it. And I'm telling this story because, as you said, they're always watching and they pick up on little subtle things. So yesterday morning, we're up early, we get breakfast. Right, Daddy's on a mission. Okay, so I've brought a car charger with me. I always carry with, again, it's the 6B. So I've got the bump, I've got the car charger in the boots. Where I didn't have, but I didn't have electrical lead. I was at a hotel, didn't have one. We went around the shops, waited for them for open. Went down to a hardware store. I was going to buy an extension lead. They very gracefully let me loan one. I plugged it in. Looked, it was parked right next to a fruit and veg shop. Plugged it in, all prepared. Now, Oscar was really worried about this. And I think it's the younger generation a little bit. There's a lot of negativity maybe pushed out, and he's not on, thankfully, social media platforms and stuff. I think they just pick up on it, or that's who he is, whatever. So he was a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I don't want to amplify his, if you want to call it anxiety, worry. What he did was he's going to see Daddy step up and whatever it takes. So I was like, backup plan. It's charging. I know it's going to be okay. I'm going to find a garage. There's one garage in Ambleside. We went down there. It was too early in the morning. They set up this market stall selling fruit and veg and all good stuff. The ladies, oh yeah, it was at 8:30, right, boys, we'll get breakfast, come back. Because I can see in the window he's got one of the power packs to jumpstart the car. Plan B, if the charger doesn't work, we've got plan B. Cool. So I'm like in my head, oh, guess what? We had breakfast to go back because it's half term. The guys decided not to open the garage. I can see the charger. I'm this close away to put, I'm not really going to put the window through, but I was like, shh. So in my head, I'm like, bloody hell, this charger better work because plan B is not going to work and this, that, and that. Lo and behold, not a problem. Fired the car up. Battery was okay. Drove back. Started first on this morning. It's not an issue. What I saw was my older son, the younger one was fairly oblivious to it. The older one was getting a bit fretty as to what's going to happen. His mum called her, so I said, you'll be okay. She's, you're going to get back okay. I was like, look, I'll sort it. And she knows me. Whatever it takes, I'd get it sorted. I needed him in a very quiet, subtle way to see Daddy make this happen. And without saying, Daddy's going to do it and trying to be superhero, I just want him to see it and gently, softly, quietly implant a seed. All right, when things go wrong, you step up, you do whatever has to be done, and have a plan B, have a plan C, have contingencies, be ready, because in life, that's what we need. We don't always get what we want, but if we work hard at it and we strive for it, maybe we can get what we need.
Yeah. Or, I was just thinking, devil's advocate there, would there be an opportunity to teach obviously you taught the child to step up, but I was thinking here in this moment, could there be an opportunity to say, is it Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oscar, okay, this is what we've been given. Is there something that we could do, or you could think we could do to help to step up to fix the problem?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because in my head, it was like, if this doesn't work, what do we do? And then we sit down with the boys and we were going to basically go through a brainstorm. I'd already planned that to see what solutions they came up with, because I didn't want to give them everything and overload. I know it sounds a bit weird, but I almost wanted it to be, okay, there is a small minor blip problem, whatever you want to call it. And I've got other contingency plans, which I'm not going to share because I want you to actually see that what I do works. But if it doesn't, we've got something else. So I've got breakdown cover and this, that, and the other. He did say, the little one said, we'll just fly home, Daddy, because to him, we'll just get a plane. And that's not very practical, but we could get a train if you need. And I said, there you go. I will get you home. And there are things in the back of my head, and it's good that you're thinking about these things. But the thing to do is and this is what I explained to him, if you're focused on the worry, the negative, the poor outcome, that's what will happen. You are manifesting that because you're going to sit there right and go, oh no, the car won't start. Whereas I'm going to go, guess what we've got? The charger was there ready. And I said to him, remember I keep teaching you the 6 Ps? That's why the charger's in the car. Then you got to sit down and think, okay, I need to plug it in. I need to get an extension. And when that's nicely in the shop, I gave them a little thank you, a couple of quid, etc. I says, always treat people nicely and with respect, because without that hardware shop, and they loaned me, as I said, the extension, I would have happily bought one. But if that wasn't available in the shop next to the car park, had they not been kind enough to let me plug it in. So it just shows you, we do rely on other people sometimes. And we did have a little chat about that. And honestly, he just diffused it. He got in the car and he was really happy. Because I don't like seeing them worried. But by the same token, I did say, in life, these things are going to happen. But if you weren't worried, you probably wouldn't be motivated and inspired to do something to fix it. So focus on achieving what needs to be done rather than wallow in, oh my God, things are falling apart. Because we've all done. We've all done that. And it's not easy sometimes. Sometimes that internal voice is too strong, that negativity. And that's where you've got to get out of your own head, get in nature, get the gym, hang out with friends and not even talk about it sometimes.
Yeah.
Just roll with it. But yeah, we sorted it and we got back in good time.
So I feel as though as a society, we're becoming obsessed with, as we we're saying earlier, of things being there instantly, of social media. And I've noticed with my own niece and nephew how much we use screens to keep them occupied, but at the same time, they're becoming so engrossed by it that they're relying on technology like social media and screens to come up with solutions. But we need to be able to be resilient enough that in the moment where shit hits the fan, we're in the middle of nowhere, we need to come up with our own solutions here and there in that moment rather than using screens. And I think I feel as though we need to almost train the youngsters, teach the youngsters how to be resilient in a way that doesn't rely on anything too external, such as social media, such as screens, such as, I suppose, other people sometimes in a situation where there is no people.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you one thing that, again, somewhat scares me, and more so for them than me, but it is a fact. I was talking about it this morning with the lady whose bloods I did. She was talking about somebody in her family that's young and talking about training to be an accountant. And I said, I've got accountants as clients, and a lot of them are fearful that literally 2-3 years, there's going to be very few opportunities because of AI. I think AI, whilst it seems amazing, and yes, of course, it's contributing to, and with students, bloody hell, sadly, it's doing the work for them, but it's taken away a lot more than it's, at the moment, I feel, giving. And people are totally reliant on those things. The younger one, Freddie, has very little screen time, and when he's with me, very little. We don't watch TV and doesn't do arcade games. Oscar, being older, does a bit, but literally yesterday in the car, it's like, hey, you've had half an hour, 45 minutes. The tablet goes away, and whether we're playing in the room, I've got them looking at it. We've got Lego. Both of them read. They've always been readers, but proper books, 3 pages on paper. We've got Twister. We've got Monopoly. We've got Connect 4. We go back to old school, proper interaction, working as a family, having fun, playing games, because there might only be games, but it's a lot more than that. Turn taking, sharing, all the good stuff that kids need to learn about. But you're absolutely right. If we've got answers literally at our fingertips, what happens when that thing at our fingertips isn't there or doesn't work? We go out and we go back to basics. I said with Oscar, we'll go camping and stuff, and we've got a nice trip planned in the summer holidays. But we really don't have the gadgets. We're back to that, out and about. And the one thing I will say, and again with Oscar, he's a real empath. He's heart in his sleeve, a bit like myself. But I remember taking him years ago. I went to Scotland and we were staying on a cabin on a loch, and we went to Oban and loads of places. And everywhere we went, oh, Daddy, look at the scenery. Isn't Scotland beautiful? Look at the trees, look at the lakes, and he was like, I was really taken aback. He was only about, probably 4 or something at the time, 5. But even in the lakes, I love it that they take that in, but then it has to be encouraged. It is, you put the gadgets down, look out the window. We're going to stop in the lay-by and look at this. That's why we're going to go on the lake. We're going to be a part of it. I don't want them to live and experience life through a disassociated screen. And I'm not pretending to be the best parent in the world. I'm going to be the best I can be. But that is one thing I feel is very important. We're always out and about, always out and about. They are not plonked in front of a TV or a screen. In fact, we never have the TV on. Me and Oscar might watch a movie in the evening once Freddie's in bed, but and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying TV is a bad thing, but I want him to share and experience time, conversations, problem solving challenges with his brother, with the world, with his daddy, and not be lost in it. And it's hard saying turn that off. I get that, but the more you don't, the harder it's going to get.
Okay. Thank you, Cain. Can you tell us what you offer and how people can get in contact?
Yeah, I wear lots of hats. I do say, within kind of reason, because I don't do everything, but all aspects of health, both physical and mental. So whether it's from rehab up to elite performance in sport, strength conditioning, personal training, I do that. I don't really do much of the hands-on PT. Nutrition, again, from losing a few pounds for a holiday photo shoot up to serious health issues. But more and more over the years, focus concentration on clinical and functional medicine assessments. So that's stool testing, DNA, blood work, and more. And then I run courses in those in PT, nutrition, first aid for mental health. And as a professional speaker, I'll speak on whatever within the area of my experience is relevant for the audience. So I cater each talk, presentation, workshop, or seminar for the audience, be it their age, be it their size, demographic. Is it 3 people? Is it 500 people? I've spoke to small groups, I've spoke to national conferences. But yeah, it's literally give me a call and let me see if I can help. And if I can't, I probably know somebody who can, because a bit long in the tooth, done this for a long time. I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I do what I'm excellent at, and then I will find for you best fit if I'm not that fit.
Thank you very much, Cain.
No problem. Thank you, James. And good luck to everybody on their own journey. And remember, it doesn't have to, again, you actually said this, and it was one of my slides 2 weeks ago, mental health. Success doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be a bit jiggity-jaggedy, double backing on yourself, taking plan B routes. If you get there in the end, and it's a bit of a cliche, enjoy the journey. And we can't always, sometimes it's a complete best, the journey, but keep your focus. Get a good team of people who care about you around you, which there's a lot of fake people, so that might not be easy. And invest in, if it's required, and it's going to help, professional help. I do. Like you've done with the garage. You've found a better mechanic now who've done the job properly. Don't get corners, folks. Don't cut corners with your health, because that really is the one thing you'll regret later in life when you haven't got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care all.
Thanks for tuning in to Man, A Quest to Find Meaning. If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to reflect, then take a step. Remember, real growth comes from action, not just insight. If you found value in this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or reach out and let me know what resonated. Your feedback helps shape the journey we're on together. For more conversations like this, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for updates, tools, and upcoming guests. Remember, it's not about having the answers, it's about daring to look.